crazy stuff too. So I'm sure you heard about the deal with Mifeprex with the judge. So Mifeprex,
Oh, jeez.
yeah, I think it's an abortion pill, um, and it's a really common one. It's used for a lot of medical, chemical abortion, right? But it's especially like miscarriages. So instead of the woman naturally miscarrying, you give her the abortifacient, and it's safer, right? Right? Instead of her having to go through that long, painful process. So for miscarriages, just general abortion, you know, within a certain time frame. Well, it's been around since the 70s, but a judge in Texas felt that when the FDA approved it in the 70s, they didn't do the proper vetting, even though they did. And even though the pill's been used for 40 plus years, right, almost 50 years, and the pill is Mifeprex has a lower death rate than people taking Tylenol. The judge said, no, you can no longer allow this pill anywhere in the country, right? And we're going to look at a little bit of this because this is just an insane thing. So now it's the Supreme Court sort of put a stay on that, and they're going to be looking at it. But this is a medical pill that, literally tens and not hundreds of millions of, probably hundreds of thousands of women at least take every year for things like miscarriages, general abortions. It's incredibly safe. And now this judge wants to ban it, this federal judge.
Hot button issue of abortion access.
I have confidence in our judiciary and the way to play out.
The hard right anti-choice MAGA wing in this country will keep working and working and working to take away all women's rights.
But for now, the most commonly used abortion pill remains widely available for millions of women after the Supreme Court preserved full access to mifepristone Friday, while the appeals process plays out over a Texas judge's ruling that would have jeopardized access to the drug. A majority of the justices granting the Biden administration's request for temporary relief, with Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito publicly dissenting. The case now goes back to the Fifth Circuit, where oral arguments are set for May 17th. Nothing about the medication's availability will change before then, and may not until the matter goes back to the High Court.
I think it's very highly unlikely, given that we're in April already, that this case would be heard and resolved this term. That would be extraordinary. Much more likely, they're going to set the matter for argument in the fall of 2023, and a ruling would come out in the spring of 2024.
The White House relieved for now, with President Biden arguing the lower court decision would have, quote, undermined FDA's medical judgment and put women's health at risk. A new NBC News poll shows 58% of adults say abortion should be legal either always or most of the time, compared to a combined 38% who believe abortion should be illegal, either with exceptions or without exceptions. The abortion debate proving to be a key issue for voters as the race for 2024 heats up.
Morning, God joins me now from the...
So anyway, it's become sort of a political thing when really it's a health and financial thing for the most part for women. They're making it an ethical question. When really it's a necessity question. These kinds of drugs, that's what they're for. So like they had a woman who recently who testified, and she was, I wish I'd found that video now that I'm thinking about it, where she testified and she was talking about how she had to went through basically what was a miscarriage kind of deal. And that she had to get to the point where she was close to almost dying before they could abort it. So that's all that extra medical cost, plus the damage to her body, plus she might not be able to have children again.
Well, if they really want to make this an issue of ethics or morality, why don't we go ahead and bite and make it an issue of ethics or morality? We can tie it in with what our last segment was about.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they want to judge women that maybe don't want to bring in a child into the world. they want to abort, and they want to try to force women's hands and require them to have these children. And the same people that want to require them to have children also don't want to put any money into the resources that woman will require in order to raise that child and to take care of that child appropriately. I don't know. It seems really incredibly hypocritical if you're going to say that all of these pregnancies need to go to term and become human beings put into our society, then you probably need to back it with your money too, and say you're willing to spend the money and the resources for all of these
for the care
pregnancies to become humans, to exist, to take care of them.
To care for these children.
They stop caring as soon as the child becomes a child and born.
Right.
They stop caring at that point, and then they say, you need to be able to take care of that. Well,
right.
Maybe they had decided early on they couldn't take care of a human being and didn't want to bring one into the world,
Right. Well, and the other thing too is just the general disdain for, okay, you're a woman, you're going through a miscarriage. Maybe you wanted it, maybe you didn't, but let's say you wanted it. That's a pretty horrible thing, just in and of itself. Pretty emotional thing. On top of that fact, now we're saying instead of you just taking the drug and we'll get this over with relatively painlessly and quickly and cheaply, no, now you have to suffer for months until you're in a position where you're almost dying for us to give you an exception to abort that, even though it's dead. I mean, there was another story I read about a woman wanted the child, found out later on the kid did not have a skull, didn't form. Happens. Was not allowed, the state she was in, not allowed to get an abortion. She had to give birth to a baby without a skull that died within like the hour. And that thing suffered probably immensely, and she suffered immensely. And it could have, once again, damaged her ability to have children in the future.
And not to mention allowing that pregnancy to happen and for a child to actually be born that suffered incredible pain only to die anyway.
Yeah. And just the trauma that caused. So, I mean, this is, once again, if the goal here were to reduce the number of abortions, that's easy. Planned Parenthood, better sex education. Make condoms more available, make contraception more available. Then people would get pregnant when they want to, as opposed to accidentally. Right? But they're against all that. They're against contraception and all that stuff. So what does it all come down to at the end? It's really about, we just want to control women. We don't want women to have access to these things where they can make decisions. That's what this whole thing is. And we'll get into some of this because we're going to talk about divorce here in a minute. That's part of that too. And the whole pushback from the right wing. But it's really about oppression of women at the theme of it. And honestly,